All right, let's get right into it. We're going to break down a match that was just absolutely filled with drama, a ton of controversy, and some huge title race implications. FC Barcelona versus Atletico Madrid. So the final score was 2-1 to Barça. And yeah, that's a massive result, but believe me, that number barely scratches the surface of the story from a weekend that completely turned the Liga on its head. And this is the number that really, truly matters. See, Real Madrid lost earlier in the day, which meant Barca's victory opened up a 7-point lead at the top of the table. That's huge. But that's the real question here, isn't it? The one at the heart of this whole thing. The 3 points are in the bag for Barca, for sure. But the conversation around how they got them, well, that's just getting started. You know, the stakes for this match were just sky high. Before this weekend, that lead felt kind of fragile, like Barca was still at the mercy of their rivals. A slip-up here was simply not an option. And boy, did they capitalize. This wasn't just another win. Nope. This was the kind of victory that takes a shaky lead and turns it into a commanding one. And that's exactly why every single moment of this game is now under such an intense microscope. Okay, let's get right to the elephant in the room, the big controversy. We're talking about that challenge by Barca's Gerard Martin that had pretty much everyone holding their breath, wondering what the call would be. Now, what makes this whole debate so fascinating is that even some die-hard Barca fans, people who live and breathe this club, were saying their own guys should have been sent off. And their reasoning, it really gets to the heart of what you want sports to be about. So look, it really boils down to two big ideas. First, there's the principle of it all. The feeling of, hey, I'd rather draw a fair 10-on-10 match than win a disputed one. Nobody wants a tainted La Liga title, right? And then there's the actual ruling. The rules say you judge the violence of the tackle, not whether the player meant to do it. And that contact, it was undeniably violent. So for some, a red card was the only call that made sense. All right, so putting the refereeing debate to one side for a second, there were some individual performances that were absolutely crucial to how this match played out. Let's take a look at who really stood out. First up, Lamine Yamal. Man, this kid was electric, but his performance was a real tale of two halves. Completely different stories from the first 45 minutes to the second. Just look at that first half. He was basically unplayable. He was the entire reason Atletico went down to 10 men in the first place. But then, in the second half, with Atletico packing the middle of the pitch, he just got stuck out on the wing. He couldn't find a way to get involved centrally, where the team desperately needed his creativity to break down that defense. Next, we've got to talk about Ronald Araujo. Keeping him on the field after he picked up an injury, well, it was the questionable call, and it ended up being pretty costly for the team's defense. And this timeline, it just says it all, doesn't it? Araujo gets hurt, but stays on for a whole 20 minutes. For almost a quarter of the match, Barca's best defender was a liability, and that put the entire team at risk. It's a tough situation for a player, but it was clear he was hampering the team. So despite all these challenges, Barca somehow found a way. How did they get that all-important winning goal? Well, it was like a perfect storm, really. 4 different things all coming together at exactly the right moment. First, you've got just a moment of pure magic from João Cancelo, creating something from absolutely nothing. Then you get a little bit of luck, a fortunate bounce. Third, you have the pure killer instinct of a striker like Robert Lewandowski to be right where he needs to be. And finally, you have the tactical brain of Coach Hansi Flick, who made a sub specifically to have a guy like that in the box, to weigh on the defense. It was kind of like controlled chaos, and it worked perfectly. So, with the win in the books, controversial or not, what does it all mean? Let's get to the big question. Is the Liga title race actually over? Well, the feeling now is that this victory means the title is about 80% wrapped up for Barcelona. That's a massive, massive shift, not just in the numbers, but in the psychology of the race. And that right there is the big takeaway. That 7-point buffer is everything. It takes Barca from a position where they were vulnerable, where one bad day could change everything, to being firmly in the driver's seat for the rest of the season. So we kind of end up right back where we started. Barca got the result they needed, and they probably secured the league title because of it. But the way they won it, especially with that red card controversy, well, it pretty much guarantees that while the points are all settled, the debate is far from over.